when you think about founders kind of building their first business, like what are some of the red flags do you see right away that you're like, you're going to get to burnout?
Yeah. Well, and it's taken me, I wish I was a quick learner. It's taken me 9 businesses to kind of discover what I know. I mean, I think it's more necessity than anything else, but when we start businesses, and especially when we're younger, we have to bootstrap things, and we don't have the budget maybe to create a system, at least initially, that scales, that has staff, that has SOPs, etc. So we not only wear all the hats, but we perform a lot of tasks that we're not good at. And that's kind of the the recipe for burnout, really. And the first signs of it are the number one sort of canary in the coal mine is an exhaustion that doesn't go away. It's, what we found about most burnouts is that they're perfectionists and they don't set very good boundaries. So they wear all the hats and they just it's as long as everything's perfect, they're happy, and, the combination of those 2 things does lead to burnout.
Is it similar to the exhaustion you feel when you have small kids in the house? Because I'm
Well, that
always
doesn't
tired.
help, doesn't help,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, and a lot of I had 4 little kids under 5 at one point, and, yikes. That's absolutely but, yeah, it's the kind of fatigue that when you wake up in the morning expecting to wake up refreshed, you wake up just as tired as when you went to bed. It reminds me I often think of the Bill Murray movie Groundhog's Day, where he wakes up at 6:30 AM with the clock radio going off with Sonny and Cher singing, "I Got You, Babe," or whatever.
Right.
But it's that kind of despair of, "Oh my god, I've gotta get up, and it's all on me to make this happen, but I'm not sure if I can do it today." And the real fear is one day I won't be able to answer the bell. One day I won't be able to get out of bed. Then what happens?
Right. Yeah. I'm curious, do you see more of this burnout happening with those who are entrepreneurs in their own business or those who are working in, call it 9 to 5, or whatever the hours are for somebody else?
I see it. I think people who are in 9 to 5 businesses have, entrepreneurs as you know so well from your own experience. We're kind of unusual people, and we've never, met a challenge that we couldn't overcome. There's kind of a boundless and sometimes borders on masochism, kind of an optimistic attitude. But burnout occurs in both venues, and we work with both entrepreneurs and business owners as well as top executives. It's a little bit different. The entrepreneur has more control. They don't necessarily think they do, but they actually have a little bit more control.
Yeah.
Um, but it happens in both camps.
In more control in which way?
Well, if you're an entrepreneur, then theoretically you can change everything about your business. It may not
Yeah.
feel like you can, but you really can. Whereas if you're an executive with the business, the problem there often is that you have all of the responsibility, but only a fraction of the authority. And if you're a uber responsible person, but you
Yeah.
but you really don't have the authority 100%, and you're a perfectionist, that
Right.
that definitely leads to burnout.
And I'm curious about that because I've seen that, probably lived a bit of it myself too. And there is this different thing I feel like sometimes, but this is where you with your experience can correct me if I'm wrong, that at least when it is your own business, there is this different sense of you are building something. There's something where the outcome is still theoretically yours. You could still look at it and be like, well, at least hopefully in the end here, I'm going to have a business to sell. Where sometimes in corporate, America or those, 9 to 5s, you don't have that same thing. So you can't connect it to as strong of a why, if you want to call it that, or something else. So that's
Mhm.
why I was curious if it seemed like it appeared more in one than the other. But I also know entrepreneurs are pushing themselves extremely hard too. So guessing that balances it out. So,
Well, the entrepreneurial personality, we do a lot of personality and performance preference testing for our clients to help them ensure that they hire the right people for the right jobs in terms of psychological temperament and in terms of preferences. And entrepreneurs are definitely, a group unto themselves. There is a huge
yeah.
risk tolerance and a huge desire to do it yourself, to be independent. Otherwise, we might have corporate jobs, but there's this tremendous desire to make something new and to do it yourself, and also to move at a pace that very few people are willing to work at or need to work at. So it's definitely for entrepreneurs, it's a special blend of things. When you compound that though with a perfectionism and with a reluctance or even an inability to delegate or to scale. And that's, that's usually the point that I meet a lot of our entrepreneurs is they've scaled the business or they've grown the business to whatever that threshold is, $1 million in sales or 5 million in sales, but they hit that ceiling and there
Yeah.
appears to be no way to break through. And so they do all of their usual tricks that have gotten them to this point that ought to work, and they aren't working. And so what they usually do is the two knobs are work harder and worry more, and and that leads to burnout if those are the only
Right.
knobs you're adjusting.
Interesting. Work harder and or worry more. Okay.
To kind of touch on a little bit of what Michael said from a personal experience, during my Disney tenure, for about 5 years of that, I had a startup on the side. And, the goal of it was never to be having two full time jobs. It was always, when are we going to get to a point where it can turn into, its own, big company that I was running? It never got to that point, but I was having so much fun and I was so passionate about the project that I never felt burnout. And I
Ah,
reflected on this a lot because, I would have my 9, 10 hour days at Disney. I would wake up, 5 a.m. I was on with our offshore team for like 3 hours, 3.5 hours, get home. I was on with the offshore or, local teams, 7 to 10. And then on the weekends, it was all about, the startup. And I never felt burnout because I was enjoying it so much.
sure.
And so sharing that experience, I want to just get your reaction on, does passion play a role in reducing burnout from your experience and clients that you work with?
Absolutely. I mean, this is the juice for entrepreneurs. This is why we do it. It's to be able to make something and grow something and to realize a vision. I mean, it is very much an artistic kind of an endeavor. And that's really you just hit the bullseye, Arden, I think, in terms of what motivates most entrepreneurs. It certainly has me. And why we tend a lot of us to be serial entrepreneurs is because there is that juice or that excitement that you don't get any other way. Where it begins to, or it can lead to burnout is if we find that, there are a lot of practical things that start to find their way into our lives. If we have little children around, for example, and we suddenly realize, oh God, I have to feed them. And in fact, maybe I have to provide college educations for all these little people, and also for a lot of my clients, the question can come down to, do I succeed at work or succeed at home? But it feels like it's a pick one scenario, sort of an existential question. And if your partner or your spouse asks you a question like, or comments that you're with us, but you're not present, if you've ever heard anybody say that, then you know you're in deep shit. And you've, you're going to have to make some choices. But it feels like a zero sum game, or it can,
Yeah.
I have to either succeed in my business or my career or succeed at home, but it doesn't seem like I can do both. And yet most of us,